people, and welcome back to Gav Goes In. Big up to everyone coming through. Big up to Barbara Joseph each and every time, gifting out the memberships, 5 memberships. Yeah, big up to Barbara. Listen, appreciate the support. Appreciate you guys coming through as always. And as I said, guys, it doesn't go unnoticed that you guys always come through. So big up to Lumi Rain. Again, big up to Barbara Joseph. I'm all good. Just come back from a run, and had to try and sweat out some of this last bit of cold I've got going on. And obviously I had my boxing training yesterday, which went well. So yeah, listen, literally got my early morning run out the way. And yeah, it's one of them things that it is. I feel good. I feel good, man. I think sometimes waking up in the morning, going for a nice little run, you can't really go too wrong with that one. So yeah, literally got back about 5 minutes ago. So I had to set up and all that kind of stuff. Well, I had to set up something. But yeah, listen, never gonna miss this stream, and obviously a big up to you guys for contributing to the community each and every time. Yeah, listen. Just gonna go through some of your chats. I'm gonna get a little poll going. Big up to Fitz as well. Big up to Broderick. Big up to Jude Fenwick as well. Let me just check something, guys. One sec. I'm gonna put up a little poll for you guys right now. So you guys obviously can see the title. So we're gonna get it going now. Let's see. Give me 1 minute, guys. Let's see. So yeah, guys, bear me 1 minute. Should just get this poll out, and then that didn't sound too good, did it? That sounded a bit dodgy, that comment there. Apologies for that. Right, so guys, which midfielder are you picking? So make sure you guys get your votes in. Big up. Kevin's come back on there with his negativity again. Kevin, listen, we're gonna just keep it nice and simple with you, yeah? Like any disrespect in there, you're getting blocked indefinitely. So I'm just letting you know. You disrespect any of my mods, or you disrespect me, I don't mind you coming in there if you've got comments to make, which you disagree with all the time. I don't mind that. But as soon as you start disrespecting myself, or you disrespect any of my mods, I'm gonna just block you all day. Yeah? Listen, I'm not gonna go into it, but you've been warned, man. That's all I'm gonna say. If you wanna have your own say, then fair enough. But one thing I'm not gonna tolerate is disrespecting any of my mods and disrespecting myself. So you've been warned, man. Chelsea are bizarrely linked to some of these because Chelsea central midfield is one area they actually have a lot of quality. I agree. But again, when there's players coming on the market, you always have to be interested in the top players, man. And that's what it is. Let's see. Yeah, guys, come on. Make sure we're smashing that like button as well. So far we got 2 votes, guys. Get your votes in and let us know what you think. So which midfielder you picking? Adam Wharton, Carlos Baleba, Elliot Anderson. Yeah, and then we'll get into that a bit later. So guys, listen. Just speaking of those three, three of the most in-demand midfielders in Europe right now. And as I said, it's one of them things where, I think a lot of people are probably looking at those three players as probably staying in the Premier League. But I think, there'll be a lot of other interested clubs for me personally. I think I think La Liga could be looking at I think La Liga could be looking at definitely an Adam Wharton, with the way that he plays. Who knows, man? Like maybe other teams, probably teams in Germany, you might say might be looking at some of these players, but in France as well, the top teams. But I definitely do think these are three of the most in demand players right now in Europe, and for different reasons. Again, make sure you get your vote in, and then we're going to discuss that as well. And guys, obviously Premier League season on his way back. Premier League resuming after international break. Obviously, I'm doing a live watching on for the Man United Liverpool game on Sunday, which kicks off at, I believe, is it 4:30 or 4 o'clock kicks off. So yeah, we'll be live shortly before that game for the live watch along. Massive game. And guys, as well, I got something to discuss because I've seen some news. I think it might have been last night, and it's involving a couple of former Man United players. And yeah, I want to have my say on that in a bit. So yeah, we'll be getting into that at the end of the stream because yeah, I'm just laughing half the time at some of these comments from some of these pundits and ex-Man United players because it's just ridiculous. But so yeah, as I said, guys, I think Elliot Anderson, Baleba, and Adam Wharton, three of the most in-demand midfielders right now in Europe. Let me know, guys, what teams you think they will end up at. If we're looking at all three of the players, there's not really much in it in between in terms of the age. You've got Baleba and Adam Wharton, both 21 years of age, and Elliot Anderson, 22. And you know what it is for me, yeah? I mean, if I'm picking one player, again, I think all three players are definitely three top players, in the making. I'm still young, and I think, you got Wharton and Elliot Anderson. I think, in a sense, Elliot Anderson's kind of come from nowhere. But I did mention yesterday, having watched Anderson in the under-21 Euros, it's one of them things that I was definitely looking at it and saying, yeah, he's definitely going to be a senior England international. Right, Kevin, you're gone, man. Right. Let's time out Kevin again. Not having his nonsense today, man. But so yeah, I think definitely, guys, yeah, I think Anderson's definitely come from nowhere. And what I did say, I said, I think watching him in that Euro under-21s, even myself, I didn't realize how good he was till I watched the under-21 Euros where he absolutely dominated that midfield. And again, England went and won the Euros. I think a lot of people were looking at Harvey Elliott as a standout player. And but I think Elliot Anderson, if anyone watched that tournament, would have seen he was definitely England's best player for me. I think Harvey Elliott got all the credit for his goals, but I think Anderson was the standout player for me, definitely. And I think the fact that he's now a senior England international, the fact that he's I think he's got one foot on the plane already. I definitely do believe that, Who's to say if he doesn't start, man? Because I think he definitely has a good chance of starting. And yeah, man, I think he's been very good this season so far. And he's been very good for England. I think against the teams they've played, I think it's definitely not been a test for him. So when they play against the better nations, you probably see what he's got to offer. But I think obviously there's been news that was reported yesterday that the likes of Man City and Chelsea are interested in him, and you look at Man City as putting in a bid of 70 million, I believe, next season for Anderson. I mean, to be fair, it's weird because I think his value would have been about what 40 mil, 50 mil before. I think the fact that he's now an England international and looking like a regular, the fact that he's in demand and he's performing the way he's performing, yeah, I think 70 mil is probably going to be the starting point now for him because again, Forest won't want to lose him. You look at again former Newcastle player, and Newcastle didn't want to get rid of him as well, but for PSR reasons, he had to go. You know, could Newcastle be back in for him? You never know. But yeah, no, he's been a very good player, man, so far this season. And I definitely do think next season, if he carries on his form and has a good World Cup, if he does get selected, you know, I think it's only going to enhance his prospects, man, for me. So, yeah, he's definitely one to watch. And Adam Wharton, as we know, you know, Adam Wharton's caught in interest from all over the place. You know, I think Adam Wharton can go and play for Real Madrid, Barcelona, PSG. And the reason I've picked out those teams in particular is because the kind of player that Adam Wharton is, very composed on the ball, very cultured. You know, it's obvious for me that I see him at one of those clubs. I think personally, I think he probably want to stay in the Premier League, you know, and go to one of the big teams, you know. But I can definitely see him at one of them clubs because if you look at the likes of Real Madrid, losing like a Tony Cruz, someone that can dictate the tempo of a game, he's definitely someone that can do that. So yeah, I think whether they look at him next summer, I don't know, because again, they've still got the likes of Camavinga, Chouameni, Valverde that are still there. But you never know; they could be looking at him as someone to come in and do a similar job to what Tony Cruz did. Again, the way he plays, he can fit into Barca. I mean, do Barca need him? I mean, if you look at the base of Barca's midfield, you've got the likes of Pedri, you've got the likes of Frankie de Jong, you know, you've got Mark Bernal, who's coming through as well. So their need for Adam Wharton isn't that great for me, but he can definitely go and play for them. And again, you look at the likes of what's his face. I mean, will they play a three in there, slightly deeper? I don't think so. I think they probably play with a number 10 next season, Barca. So again, you think Adam Wharton could play for them, but their need is not that great for me. And then we go on to Carlos Baleba. And again, I'm not going to hide the fact that Baleba for me should be United's number one target for me in terms of the way that he plays. I think in terms of the aggressiveness, in terms of his box to box, in terms of his quality on his left foot as well, I definitely do think Baleba is someone that does need to be signed by Man United. And again, I think a lot of people have a difference of opinion. You know, Baleba, Anderson, and Wharton. I'm still saying Baleba is the one that United need to sign. You know, I've said that from the start. And I think in terms of what Man United need in that midfield, again, Man United needs someone that can get their foot on the ball, you know. But I think Baleba's a player that can't be an opportunity that doesn't get taken for me. So I'm definitely going to say Carlos Baleba because I think he's someone for me that he offers so much in that Man United midfield. But again, I look at Chelsea. You know, if Chelsea are looking at if Chelsea need a central midfielder that's left-footed, yeah, I think Carlos Baleba will be ideal for them. Imagine having a midfield base for Chelsea, Baleba and Caicedo. And then you got Romeo Lavia still there as well. You know, I think that would make their midfield solid. But again, I'm hoping Man United do get Baleba again because, you know, since the likes of Fred, you know, since Fred hasn't been there, Man United have missed a left-footed central midfielder. And again, I do understand Man United do need someone that can control games. But I just think Baleba would add something to that midfield. And him being 21 years of age, You know, him having the kind of profile that I think that midfield needs. Because you look at that midfield lacks energy. You know, it lacks quality as well. But I think with Baleba, you're getting someone that is press resistant, and you're getting someone that does have energy in that midfield, and he's left footed. You know, so if you can get him and a Elliot Anderson as a combination, that would be great. Or if you can get him and Adam Wharton. Again, I know Adam Wharton is left footed as well, but I just think if I'm choosing between Wharton and Baleba, I'm still going to say Baleba, even though I do rate Adam Wharton highly. But I think Baleba is a must sign for Manchester United. And again, just agreeing with the poll, Baleba 67%, Wharton 33%, and then no votes for Elliot Anderson. So guys, get your votes in. Let me know what you think. What three players do you think is the most in demand? What midfielder are you picking? Again, Winston Wickleberry has said Agume's playing in Spain is better than Baleba and is much cheaper. But again, Agume's at Sevilla. But the thing is, with Baleba, Baleba's left-footed. And I've been saying this, you know, for a while. Man United need a left-footed central midfielder. You know, they haven't had that since Fred, you know, and it adds for the balance in the team. So he's definitely someone that, for me, he needs to be got, because just for many, many, many reasons, you know. And so Wharton and Baleba are not being compared. They're not. They're both left-footed central midfielders. You know, they're both different profiles, you know, and basically, like, people that are comparing those two players, I mean, I've not seen it. I just think the only reason these two are being compared is because they're both left-footed. You know, again, I think Adam Wharton, for me, is a bit more two-footed for me, you know, but they're not being compared from what I'm seeing. And you can't compare them because they're both different players. But I'm just saying, Man United's need for me is greater in terms of what player they need. I think Baleba is a definite signing for me, 100%. And as I said, I think not just the Premier League, I think clubs around Europe. You know, I think, as I said, if I'm looking at PSG, I mean, I think PSG's midfield doesn't really need too much upgrading, in my opinion, because I think the three of Vitinha, Fabian Ruiz, and João Neves. Guys, bear me 1 minute. Sorry, bear me 1 minute. Yeah, sorry guys. I think the three of João Neves, Fabian Ruiz, and Vitinha. I think, you know, the fact that you've got a left-footed central midfielder in Fabian Ruiz, you know, I think it's one of them things that he's not really needed for me in that sense. So I think Baleba, Wharton, you know, Vitinha can do a similar thing to what Wharton does. But again, Fabian Ruiz is there, he's left-footed. Elliot Anderson. Again, the reason I think Elliot Anderson is in demand as well is because Elliot Anderson is he's very energetic. You know, he's a good ball winner for me. So I think with someone like him in the team, I think a lot of midfields at the moment are lacking that. Someone that can play, and someone that is energetic in that midfield as well. So I think that's why he stands out in a sense, Elliot Anderson. Again, I've seen a comment from Winston saying, why do they need a left footer? None of Carrick, Scholes, Keane, Ince, Hargreaves or Butt were left footed. And again, it's like sometimes, you know, I just think people are either not understanding the game or they're just trying to be difficult. So when I'm saying Man United need a left-footed central midfielder, I don't care at the fact that Carrick, Scholes, Keane, Ince, Hargreaves or Nicky Butt weren't left-footed. I'm saying, just like how you need centre-backs that are left-footed at left-side centre-back to add to the balance, because if you think of ball-playing teams, yeah, you need to be able to be comfortable, let's say if you're left-footed on that side, to play out. You know, you look at a lot of the teams, I mean, it's not as prevalent as it is now, but if you look at a lot of the teams in their prime, you know, they all had left-footed centre-backs on the left-hand side, right-footed centre-backs on the right-hand side, because it adds balance to the team. And I think in midfield, Man United definitely need a left-footed central midfielder to add balance to that midfield, because there's no left-footers in there. Yeah, if you look at the attack, yeah, you've only got two left-footed attackers in Amad Diallo and Brian Mbuemo. So again, you definitely need a left-footed central midfielder to add the balance. You know, like, again, people can think that's not really important, but for me, it definitely is something that needs to be looked at. You know, and I think it just adds the balance, and it makes for better viewing for me, because the amount of times you get a lot of players that can't turn out on their strongest foot and end up going back. You know, again, if you're more balanced on your left foot and you can play out, it makes it easier. So that's what I'm saying. Just go and get a left-footed central midfielder, and this is why I think as well having a left-footed centre back, if you're playing a four at the back, is better as well. You know, so yeah, I'm definitely gonna say I'd definitely prefer Baleba or Wharton in that sense. I think Baleba definitely needs to be signed though for me. Now, Winston, no one's afraid of opinion, but you're just coming on there and you're just trying to dictate the chat because you think you're right when you're not. At the end of the day, if you don't want to understand the difference between having a left-footed central midfielder, then again, you're not forced to be here. But you're not gonna take over the chat with your nonsense. So, as I said, either contribute to the channel, you know, and hear everyone's points of view, or don't be in there. You're not forced to be here, man. You know, you're just trying to take over the chat with you with thinking you're right, man, and it's not that. So yeah, have your opinion, explain it. I'm not saying your opinion's nonsense, but when I'm trying to explain to you that having a left-footed central midfielder for me is key, you know, you're coming out with other stuff and trying to disregard my opinion. Again, it's my channel, and if you don't want to be here, then don't be here. You're not forced to be here. So Arsenal and City have a lot of left-footed midfielders. Yeah, they do. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say they have loads, but you've got Odegaard, you've got Mikel Merino, you've got Ethan Nwaneri as well, who can all play centrally. Obviously, Dalman, Saka, Madueke, they all play out from the right. You know, Kai Havertz is a 10, obviously playing more as a 9. Obviously, he's left-footed as well. But again, listen, the main point of it is, you know, is about having balance. You know, you look at, as I said, Real Madrid have Camavinga, who's left-footed in there. You know, obviously, Arda Güler is a number 10. He's left-footed. Mastan Tawano can play central as well. He's left-footed. You know, obviously, Barca have Marc Bernal coming through. But they don't really have too many other central midfielders that are left-footed. Again, that could be something that they might target in the future. City again, you know, even Ryan Cherky as well is left-footed. You know, you look at the Savinho as well. Again, having left-footed central midfielders is all about balance, guys. So it's one of them things, you know, that again, if people don't want to understand in regards to what I'm saying, it's about having balance for the midfield, man. So let's move past that anyway. No one's saying Cherky is a central midfielder. It's about having left-footed players in the team to balance the team out. Central midfield, as I'm saying, you know, what Man United need is, central midfield, what Man United need, they have not one central midfielder that is left-footed. That's the fact. That's why Baleba and even Adam Wharton is crucial. So, yeah, it's not really difficult to understand, but, yeah, let's move past that anyway. Guys, make sure you're voting. So, Baleba, 80%, Wharton, 20%, Elliot Anderson hasn't got a vote yet, which I'm surprised at. So, There's 5 votes, guys, so make sure you're getting your votes in and let us know what midfielder you think, which one you're picking. So, yeah. And again, I think even a team like Bayern Munich, you think of Bayern Munich central midfield, who they got at the moment. So you think of Pavlovic, obviously young German, that's coming through. Joshua Kimmich, obviously, is getting on a bit now and can play at right back. So again, I think looking at Elliot Anderson, the kind of profile that he is, someone that's got a lot of energy about him, and has quality. He could be a target for Bayern Munich as well for me. And yeah, I definitely think those 3 players there, man, they're the most in demand. I think in terms of the value, the market value of all 3 players. Again, as we know, Baleba was quoted at 90 mil, 90 to 100 mil. I mean, his price has probably come down a bit, even though we're hearing that, those teams, that Brighton are still going to ask for something of that amount. But I definitely do think, yeah, it's hard to think, man, because I'm hearing that Wharton's going to go for 100 mil. I don't think Palace hold out for 100 mil for Wharton. Let's say if Adam Wharton was to go to a Real Madrid, for argument's sake, yeah, I think Madrid could get him for cheaper than 100 mil. Again, Elliot Anderson, I think before would have been like 40 to 50 mil. I think 70 mil is probably about right now for him. And then you look at yeah. So I think, yeah, Anderson 70 mil, Baleba, I'm gonna say probably between 80 and 90. And I think Adam Wharton probably might be about the same, 80 or 90. I don't think any player goes for 100 mil. I'll be very surprised at that, Yeah, again, Baleba can be quoted at 104 all he wants. Baleba won't go for 104. So, yeah. Winston, if I'm you, Winston, I'll stop listening to other channels, man. Because Baleba's not going to go for 104. Stop making up nonsense in the chat, man. He won't go for 104. So, yeah, allow it, man. Yeah, listen, all these 100 million price tags is just to deter other teams from getting their players, But do I believe Wharton, Anderson, and Baleba all go for 100 million each? No way. I don't see that. I think a lot of these deals will be brokered down, into installments for me as well. Yeah, listen, I don't care what was quoted, man. He's not going to go for 104 mil. Like, you've heard it here first. He won't go for that. He won't. There'll probably be installments that might happen. You might see United pay something for Baleba over 4 or 5 years, where it might be about 20 mil. Who knows? But there's no way United are going to fork out 104 million straight for Baleba, man. So, yeah, you've got that one wrong, man. But I think out of the 3 players, I think he might go for the most, in my opinion. Yeah, there you go. Most price tags are just a starting point. I agree. They are. They are just a starting point. Yeah, they are just a starting point. But guys, who do you think is going to be the best player at the 3? Who's the best player at the 3? I think, for me, I'd probably say, in terms of what I like to watch, someone that's more cultured. I like Adam Wharton. I like the way Adam Wharton plays, because I'm very much on the opinion of, the way that Barcelona play is what I like to watch, how I like to see football. And I think out of the 3 players, I think Wharton fits into a Barca system more for me. Although I do think Baleba, for me, potentially, I think he might have the highest ceiling out of all 3. I just think Baleba ticks so many boxes for a lot of teams, and I know a lot of people are saying that Baleba hasn't been the same since the interest from United in the summer. You know, maybe his head has been turned, but I definitely do think I definitely do think he's got, you know, probably that slightly bit higher of a ceiling. You know, but that's nothing against Wharton or Anderson, because I do rate both players highly. Um, so yeah, I think yeah, I'm gonna say he's definitely got the highest ceiling. But I do think all three of these players will be on the move. You know, I think January's unlikely. I'm gonna say because as we've heard with Carlos Baleba, you know, Brighton are still asking for a lot of money for him in January. And again, January deals don't really happen in terms of players of that level and the prices that are being quoted. But I definitely think in the summer, all three of them could be on the move. You know, I think Anderson's going to stay at Forest definitely for the whole season. I don't see Forest entertaining any bids for him in January unless they're going to pay obscene amounts. You know, I think if Anderson was to go, you're probably looking at about 70 mil in January, which I don't know if anyone pays that. Um, yeah, again, yeah, potential is, yeah, I would agree with that. But I think from what I've seen of all three of them, I definitely do think, you know, there's a high ceiling for all three of them. You know, and again, Elliot Anderson is someone that's come from nowhere to be a regular starter right now for England. You know, so um, yeah, exactly. So good comment, Winston. Yeah, January is very unlikely because of the World Cup, because of how much they're going to cost. You know, so it is going to be a summer deal. I can see why Man City are interested in Elliot Anderson, because you look at Man City's midfield. Although what I would say, you know, are they potentially looking at Elliot Anderson as a replacement for Rodri? You know, because again, Elliot Anderson is very composed on the ball. You know, is he going to play slightly deeper to what Rodri does? You know, it could be something they're looking at. Because I'm looking at Tijani Reinders, yeah? And Reinders is quite similar to Elliot Anderson in terms of the energy, in terms of the composure on the ball. So I'm just thinking the fact that they're looking at Anderson, is it a long-term replacement for Rodri? Although I do think Elliot Anderson is probably a bit more attacking than Rodri. So yeah, I definitely do think it's one to look out for. You know, yeah, I think yeah, I'm gonna say Reinders. Yeah, so Reinders is more like a Rice. Yeah, I hear that. I hear that. I think Declan Rice is more defensive than Reinders, but I think Reinders and Elliot Anderson are quite similar in profiles. I think Tijani Reinders is box to box, and I think Elliot Anderson can be box to box, but I think the way he plays for England, he sits slightly deeper. So I think yeah, I do think he is a bit like Reinders in that respect. But they're probably looking at him as the long term replacement for Rodri, which I kind of see. I kind of see. I don't think him and Rodri are the same player. I think Rodri is a pure DM, but I think Elliot Anderson can play that role, and he's got the energy to match it as well. So that's probably what Pep's probably looking at. So now Anderson is box to box. He is box to box. He can play slightly deeper, but he's box to box. You know, the guy wears number 8 on his back. So number 8s are normally box to box midfielders. So he can play slightly deeper, um, as he's been shown for England. But again, you have to look at the different systems. You know, international football's a lot slower, so he can afford to play slightly deeper. You know, but his natural position is a number 8 box to box midfielder. So yeah, he's a box to box midfielder, but he can play slightly deeper. And I think the reason why Man City might be looking at him is because he can play slightly deeper in the 6 as to what Rodri's doing now. But then he's got the energy that Rodri's probably kind of lacking right now as well. So yeah, box to box midfielder, and he can play slightly deeper. Yeah, definitely. Um, do I see? I think someone asked the other day actually. Do Arsenal go in for any of them players? Baleba, Wharton, and Anderson. I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure because you think of Zubamendi. As a new signing. Obviously, Declan Rice is in there as well. Um, as we know, Arsenal like to play with a number 10. I mean, Odegaard plays slightly withdrawn, but Eze's there now as well. So I think, Wharton and the Baleba can play for Arsenal. There's no doubting about that. But I just don't know if Arsenal will be interested in them players because of, more because the outlay that they made on Zubamendi. But I definitely do think they're two players that can play for them. But I think there'll be other teams that'll be looking at those two players. I think in terms of the teams in the Premier League, I can only see with those three players the likes of Man United, Man City, possibly Liverpool. I'm not sure. Possibly Chelsea. Looking at those three players in the league, I think Man United's need is greater out of all those teams because, as we know, this midfield's a joke. There's obviously been news coming out that Ruben Amorim isn't getting on with the likes of Manuel Ugarte. Even though I don't rate Ugarte, I think Ugarte is a poor player. And obviously we know he doesn't rate Kobe Manu as well. You got the manager falling out with all these kind of players. I think a lot needs to be looked at this manager. Because it's kind of obvious now why he's favouring Casemiro and Bruno, even though we knew that was going to be the case anyway. But it's one of them things now. If he's falling out with all these players, when are we going to start looking at this manager? Crazy. So Donnarumma wears 25, but he isn't on the bench. What does that mean? What does that mean? Like that just means nothing. Again, if you're trying to compare that to the number 8, again, like when a player wears number 8, yeah, it's usually a telltale sign that they are kind of like a midfielder. So I'm not sure where you're going with this. Again, it's going back to the argument that people think Bruno Fernandes is a number 10 when he's not. There's a reason why Bruno wears number 8. He's a box-to-box midfielder in a 4-3-3, box-to-box. So the fact that Donnarumma wears 25 and he isn't on the bench, I don't know what the comparison is really. Doesn't really make any sense to me. But again, so Arsenal wanted a Goumet over Norgard, but Inter's sell-on clause made it difficult, apparently. Can see them going back in for him. I mean, yeah, he's doing well at Sevilla right now, I don't know if they go back in for a Goumet. I think what you need to realise is that if you look at Arsenal's midfield right now, I think it's clear to say that that you got Declan Rice, who definitely starts for them. And then Zubamendi's a new signing as well. And then you got Eze, who's a 10, who's a new signing. So, again, any player that they bring in is going to be, thinking to themselves where they're going to figure in this team. The captain, Odegaard, I know he's out injured, but he plays if he's fit as well. So, again, it's one of them things where it's not a foregone conclusion that any midfielder coming in now starts for Arsenal, purely because of how Arteta uses that midfield. So, if a Goumet does come to Arsenal, you'd be certain that a Goumet is coming in with the idea that he's going to be starting games. And I don't think he can be guaranteed that, personally. So I just don't see that happening. But who knows? Could be one to visit in the summer. So Bruno is the best 10 in the world. Well, again, if you think Bruno's the best 10 in the world, I'm sorry, you haven't seen football. Because that is probably one of the worst takes I've ever heard. Again, everyone's free to their opinion. But when I hear things like Bruno is the best 10 in the world, it shows me that you don't really understand football and don't really watch football to a level. Because to say that Bruno's the best 10 in the world Even though the way football is now, football doesn't really play with too many number 10s. Yeah, so if you're basing it on the fact that that hardly any teams play with a number 10, even though Bruno's not playing as a 10, yeah, it shows me that it's either you rate Bruno highly, yeah, or you're just saying something for the sake of it, because Bruno's not a 10 to start with. He can't play as a 10 in this system right now at Man United because, as I keep saying, this 3-4-2-1 formation, the number 10, inside 10, it requires you to be good in tight spaces. It requires you to be good in isolation, to be able to take on your fullback, yeah? And it requires a highly skilled player in those positions, yeah? With all the things that Bruno hasn't got. Not to mention, he hasn't got pace to take on his man. So, this system, him as a number 10, it kills him. If you're playing a 4-2-3-1, Bruno can play as a 10. But again, Bruno is not a natural number 10. So, to say he's the best 10 in the world, yeah, let's just move past that, man, because it's just laughable, isn't it? You know? Yeah, I was starting to think that myself, Fitz, man. Winston is probably Kevin in disguise. He's probably got a burner account, man. But he's yeah, listen, man. These guys always come through, though, innit? So, do you know what? I've actually forgotten Norgard's even there, and I think if I'm Christian Norgard, yeah, Norgard's only gone to Arsenal, I think, for the money, and because probably because he's playing Champions League football, but he's given up first team football at Brentford, being the captain, playing week in, week out, to really just being a bench option. He's not even played for them yet, I don't think. So Winston says, Salvador says, I'd pick Odegaard over Fernandes. I mean, to be honest with you, as a footballer, Odegaard's a better footballer than Bruno Fernandes. Again, it depends what you want from your number 10. If you want your number 10 to be a pure creator, yeah, for me, I think Odegaard's a better creator than Bruno Fernandes. But if you want someone that's going to get you numbers in that position, yeah, then you'd probably say Bruno Fernandes. But the way that I like to see football, you know, played, I'm going to say Odegaard over Bruno Fernandes. You know, I am. So Fitz says, no, I rate Bruno, but not the best 10 in the world. Kev is always on that, though. Fitz, I'm going to ask you this question, though. What do you rate about Bruno Fernandes? I think if you can let me know what you rate about Bruno Fernandes, I think it's probably a good idea to see why people do actually rate him. Because I'll be honest with you, the only thing I rate about Bruno Fernandes is the fact that he's available. You know, the guy very rarely gets injured. Because if I'm honest with you, his numbers I don't really rate, because as a midfielder, if you're getting more numbers than your actual striker, you know, people won't probably look at this, yeah. But I look at that as a problem. I do, because if you're a number 10, yeah, as people think Bruno is, you know, your number 10 is there first and foremost to create. But if your number 10 is getting more goals than your actual striker, there's a problem there. Regardless if you think the number 9 isn't good or not, you know, because the number 10 is supposed to be a creator, you know. And again, if you look at the fact that Bruno Fernandes is on every set piece, he takes every penalty, you know, I always like my strikers to be the penalty takers. I always like that. But the fact that Bruno does take the penalties, yeah, you take these penalties off him, you'd very quickly see that this guy's numbers ain't even that good. That's a fact. You know what I mean? So, his best ability is his availability for me. Yeah, Palmer is a 10. He is a 10. He is. He's a 10, but I think Palmer does his best work on the right-hand side where he's got more space. Because again, with Cole Palmer, I think sometimes don't look at the positions that these guys start. Just look at the positions that they take up. So if Cole Palmer starts on the right-hand side, he can always take up a position as a number 10 when the game's going on. And I think Cole Palmer's better for me on the right-hand side where he can drift into the spaces and pick up the ball. I think when you start him as a number 10, there's too much traffic in that central midfield, especially in the Premier League as well. So I definitely do think him starting from the right and then drifting into the central areas I think you get a better Cole Palmer. So I think the hat is too tight, Gav. Bruno is elite behind the front man. I disagree. And again, what do you deem as elite? Because again, it's all okay just putting in comments in, but what is elite about Bruno Fernandes? That's what I want to know. Let's find out. Let's find out. What is elite about Bruno Fernandes? So again, if we're talking numbers, Bruno has created more chances than Odegaard. And again, this is where the argument stops there, because when people try to look at Bruno, yeah, the first thing people talk about is numbers. And that means you've lost the argument right there. Because, you know, I always use this comparison, yeah. The way football's gone now just shows you that football's dropped off, because people are looking at players as being, you know, top players because of numbers, you know. But again, when we look at the likes of Andres Iniesta, we look at, you know, Zidane, these guys never had numbers. So the fact that people are saying, or the fact that Winston is saying numbers with Bruno and that he's created more chances than Odegaard, this is the problem. You know, this is the problem. I think we need to look at the actual footballer. You know, as a footballer, Odegaard for me is a better player than Bruno Fernandes. But in terms of numbers, Bruno's always going to be ahead of him because of the way Bruno plays. But that doesn't mean Bruno's better than Odegaard. He's not. It's not. You know. So yeah, when you're using numbers to try and back up a player, yeah, it's never a good look, man, for me. So Lampard got better numbers than his strikers most of the time. He did, but he was playing in a 4-3-3. Again, he was a penalty taker as well, which adds into it. And Chelsea was successful in that time. The way that Bruno plays in Man United haven't been successful. So again, when you've got a player that plays the way he does and tries to get numbers for his own what's the word? For his own doing, it's not good. That's the problem, man. So Odegaard ain't the player you want receiving between the lines. Ain't great in tight spaces. Much better, slightly deeper and getting on the ball more. I disagree with that, Taylor. Odegaard is good in tight spaces. He is. I think the problem with Odegaard, yeah, is that Odegaard for me is a player that flatters to deceive, because I think there's too many times where Odegaard looks like a neat player, but at the end of the game, you know, he's not really doing too much. I think he's someone that just keeps the ball moving. You know, if you want to play progressive, technical football, Odegaard's your man. But if you need someone that's gonna, I don't know, produce like a ball through the eye of a needle, you know, I don't think Odegaard can be relied upon consistently for that, you know. But I definitely do think Odegaard as a footballer in between the lines and in tight spaces, he is good in that respect. So I disagree. Yeah, listen, Fitz. Again, that's what I said. Yeah, his best ability is availability. So I rate the passion. To be honest, always fit, always wants to be involved, and with better quality around him. I don't think he's out of position as much. I actually miss seeing players with that fire. But again, yeah, the way Bruno is, you know, that's the kind of player Bruno is. Like, Bruno's a passion merchant, and it feeds into the average football fan. The average football fan that doesn't really know what they're watching would love a Bruno Fernandes because he's a passion merchant. But for me, that looks at, you know, more than just that. I'm not having a Bruno Fernandes. I'm not. So, but no, I do understand people that do like his passion or the fact that he's always fit. I do understand that, but I look at more than that for me personally. Big up to DXR. Big up, my guy. Big up for coming through. So numbers win games. Yeah, but they don't necessarily win trophies. So this is what I'm trying to say to you. Winston says numbers win games, but but they don't necessarily win trophies. Because what did Bruno's numbers get Man United season just gone? That's the question. You know? Big up to Mike. Big up Mike for coming through. So I read a stat that Bruno has only assisted Ronaldo 4 times in his entire 100+ appearances, which is insane if that's true. Yeah, that's something I didn't know, but probably because he's always shooting. Who knows? Guys, make sure you're voting. So which midfielder you picking? Adam Wharton, 33%. Carlos Baleba, 56%. Elliot Anderson, 11%. So I'd say get Adam Wharton and Anderson because Baleba's form at the moment is horrible. Yeah, listen, I hear that. I hear that. He hasn't been great, but I'm still going to say Baleba for me. Although I do rate all 3 of them. But I think Baleba is something that Man United need. And purely because, yeah, I'm looking at that midfield right now. And that midfield lacks quality and energy combined. And a left-footed central midfielder for the balance. So I think someone like Baleba, for me, would add that. But I do rate all 3 players. 100%, I do rate all 3 players. So was Bruno's fault United strikers missed their chances? No one's saying that. Yeah, no one's saying that. But that's just an easy get out for Bruno. At the end of the day, Bruno Fernandes is meant to be like people always say to you, Bruno Fernandes creates the most chances. This and that. But again, as I've mentioned to you guys previously, if you just look at the metric and how chances are created now in football, you'd very quickly see, that it's a lie. Because Bruno Fernandes is on every set piece, and regardless of what ball Bruno puts in, as soon as a Man United player, gets their head to the ball or their foot to the ball, that counts as a chance created. So again, a lot of these stats are not true, And if you've got a striker, because again, people say that Man United strikers miss a lot of chances. Yeah, as poor as Højlund is. Yeah, I would like to see how many chances Højlund missed from Bruno Fernandes' chance creation, and then you'll get your answer. So yeah, to say that Bruno Fernandes, it's not Bruno's fault that United strikers missed their chances. That's just an easy get out for Bruno Fernandes. The facts are, Bruno has all these numbers to the detriment of the team, because you take Bruno Fernandes off the penalties, off of every set piece, you quickly see that his numbers ain't that good. It's a fact. So but guys, we're gonna move on anyway, because this Bruno chat is it goes round in circles. The facts are, the quicker Man United move this player on and the manager, the better the club will be in, for me. But yeah, listen, I'm gonna touch on something that I see last night, and this is why, you have to just ignore a lot of these pundits and these ex-Manchester United players. Because I'm seeing Peter Schmeichel, coming out saying he cannot believe McTominay and Rasmus Højlund are at Napoli. And again, this is a sign of, why you should never listen to these pundits, because a lot of these pundits and these ex players, they ain't got a clue what's going on. I promise you, because the fact that he can come out and say, why is Højlund and McTominay at Napoli? And again, guys, people need to understand, yeah, there's a reason why McTominay and Højlund would probably are doing well or would do well in Italy. Italy's a slower pace, McTominay and Højlund are two players that have physicality in that league. You think of McTominay, he runs all day. He's quite a physical player. Rasmus Højlund the same, and he has pace in that league. When these two players were playing in England, where, the physicality is one of the main things in this league, where every player has some sort of physicality, yeah, they're not going to shine because you need more than that. And their quality wasn't high. So when the likes of Peter Schmeichel is coming out saying he can't believe that they are at Napoli, it's like, well, what did you, like for a start, what are you talking about? Because what, you think that these two players deserve to be at Man United still? Or you think that these two players should be playing for a Real Madrid, a Barcelona, one of the top teams in England? So again, big up to Winston. Who is Peter Schmeichel? So obviously, again, Peter Schmeichel is an ex-Manchester United goalkeeper. But who is he to, like, when you're saying who is he, I'm guessing you mean who is he to comment? And that's exactly what I'm saying, because the fact that Peter Schmeichel comes out with how he can't understand that those two players are at Napoli, it just shows a lack of intelligence amongst a lot of these ex-Man United players and a lot of these pundits, because, I'm hearing, is Højlund a 25-goal-a-season striker? This is the same guy, by the way, that got 4 league goals for Manchester United. And again, is it all on Rasmus Højlund? I'm not saying that. But he cost 72 million and had 4 league goals to show for it. Yeah? And all of a sudden now, we're now hearing, is he a 25-goal-a-season striker because he's getting a couple of goals for Napoli? Like, it's laughable. When Napoli played Man City, did Højlund score goals? He didn't. He's doing it in Italy because, as I said, that league is not about physicality. And if you've got two players in McTominay and Højlund that are known for their physicality when they were playing in England, why are we surprised that these two guys are doing that in Italy, where it's not a physical league? And again, these things are not hard to understand, but it's a lack of intelligence from the likes of Peter Schmeichel, and people that think that Rasmus Højlund and Scott McTominay deserve to be at Manchester United still, or deserve to be at a better club. You know what I mean? It's laughable. And as Mike said, people need to stop with the revisionism. Højlund, Rashford and them are just not good enough for United. Exactly. For where Man United want to go, Højlund, McTominay, Rashford, Garnacho, these guys had to be moved on. It's as simple as that. And then Bruno Fernandes needs to follow that as well. Luke Shaw, Manuel Ugarte, they need to follow that as well. But when I'm hearing people saying, when I'm hearing them saying Rasmus Højlund is a 25-goal-a-season striker, and he can't believe him and McTominay are at Napoli. Again, it just shows a lack of intelligence, and these guys don't really know what's going on. That's why I implore people to have your own mind and come on channels like this where you're going to get the honest truth, because these guys are just talking nonsense, Maybe they're being scripted to go and say that, because for him to come out with that, it just shows he's not really understanding what's going on, because quite clearly he didn't watch Man United all season. So Bruno treats the ball like a hot potato. I would say grenade, personally, which can cost you games sometimes because he struggles with keeping the ball and trying to control the game. I agree. If you're a team that wants to play football, you don't want Bruno Fernandes in your team, because he is, like, again, Barcelona would never want a Bruno Fernandes. Manchester City, throughout the years under Pep, will never want a Bruno Fernandes. Any footballing team, PSG, wouldn't want a Bruno Fernandes. They wouldn't. So, Is what it is. Luke Shaw has scammed the living for years. I agree. He has. He has. He definitely has, man. He has over 10 years at the club and still starting games. You know, so it's crazy. But guys, listen up. Big up yourselves. I'm gonna have to shoot, man. I gotta try and shift this flu, man. Yeah, it's madness. Try and shift this flu. But yeah, big up yourselves for coming through each and every time. Guys, make sure you're smashing the like button as well to help the channel to grow. And make sure you're subbing to the channel if you're new in here as well. Big up to all the mods for coming through. And big up to all the newcomers as well. And guys, make sure you guys check out my previous description from my last stream. Again, I'm doing a boxing event in December. And I'm trying to raise money for a charity. The charity is Andy's Man Club, which is men's mental health. So again, if you're anyone that suffers from mental health or you support the cause, then guys, any support, whether it's a small or big donation, will be much appreciated. Again, I'm going to put the link in this description once I've finished. But if you guys are looking for the link, it's in my previous stream in the description there. But I'll definitely be putting it up. So yeah, if you guys want to support and give me some support on that front as well, it's much appreciated. As always, you know, make sure you guys check out the other content. Make sure you guys share the content as well. And as I said, yeah, it's channel's growing and it's much appreciated you guys coming through all the time. Guys, I'm going to be back tomorrow, possibly the same time. So we're going to do our match preview for the Man United and Liverpool game. Massive game coming up. And obviously I've got the live watch along coming on Sunday as well. So yeah, we're going to go through how both teams might line up, Man United and Liverpool, and what will be the key encounters in the game. So yeah, make sure you guys are here tomorrow and supporting the channel as always. And as I said, make sure you smash the like button and sub to the channel if you're new in here. We are 300, I want to say 310 away from 2K subs. So yeah, make sure you guys are subbing if you're new, and make sure you guys are smashing the like. And again, make sure you share the channel, guys. Much appreciated. But yeah, big up yourselves. Have a good Thursday, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Take it easy.